Today we tried to figure out what's going on with the truck. Today's episode is not very informative. We did a lot of testing on wiring and sensors. Most of the sensors work on a 3-wire setup. They've got one wire that sends a 5-volt reference from the computer. There's one wire that goes to ground. It's actually normally grounded through the computer, so it's not true like battery ground. It's just close to battery ground. And then the other wire is a signal return wire. And then the way that the sensor works is depending on what it's sensing, it will adjust its resistance internally. And then more or less of that 5 volts will either get sent to the return wire or basically get eaten by the resistor. So that's pretty much how all of the sensors in this entire truck function. Here's a list of all the things we checked. We tested the MAP sensor. It reads about 4.9 volts with the engine off, no vacuum applied to the sensor at all, which is what you'd expect. At idle, it'll read about 1.2, something like that, volts, which is about where we'd expect it to. It responds quickly, it's not sluggish, seems pretty healthy. The next thing we checked is the engine coolant temp sensor. It functions a little bit differently. It doesn't have a signal return line at all. Instead, the computer actually monitors the voltage at the 5-volt source to this sensor, and the other wire just goes straight to ground, so it's only a 2-wire thing here. It changes as the temperature changes. It does seem to be skewed, so from what we've tested, it seems to read hot. There's a resistance chart that we found in the manual, and it'll give you a resistance range for a certain temperature. So like 100 degrees Celsius should read somewhere between, I had to look it up, I think 177 ohms. We were at about 180 and it was reading about 300 ohms. 180 should be somewhere in the ballpark of like 600 to 700. And then just now we measured it, it was like 560 something. And the gauge on the dash reads about 100 degrees. So I think that sensor is skewed warm. It's also one of the only new parts we put on this TBI/intake setup when we switched everything over from the V6. We may try to find another sensor. We'll see. We'll see what happens there. What else did we test? Oh, we tested the throttle position sensor here. That works the exact same way as the MAP sensor, the manifold absolute pressure sensor. You got a 5-volt reference, signal return, and a ground. It is absolutely perfect. It reads 0.6 volts at closed throttle, and then 4.5 volts on the nose at wide open throttle, which is exactly what it should read. Everything's happy there. We also reset the timing. We let it warm up to reset the timing because that's what the manual says. So that got us about a 4-degree timing difference. We're going to try this coolant temp sensor. It's probably not going to make a big difference. And then we're going to put an exhaust in it and put an actual O2 sensor in it. When I'm looking for this vacuum line later, you guys need to tell me where it is, okay? I'm just kidding, I'll put it away. All right, well, there you go. There's your update for the day. It's not very thrilling, not very exciting, but it is what it is. Yeah, hopefully next week we'll be able to buy some exhaust parts and start making some exhausts and have some fun grinding and welding episodes. So, all right, we'll see you tomorrow.